please. Oh, microphone closer, mic louder. Okay, and just let me know. I need to do those things again. Well, first of all, good morning. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. So we got the Zoom people. Okay. So the focus this month is order. And the theme is the path to order. And there's different kinds of order. And so I want to talk about that order that can lead to the peace of who we are, the peace that always exists. And also this week, we have what we call the World Day of Prayer. And I really encourage you, even if you have no idea how to pray, what it can be is just holy. What we do is everybody can, there's paper that was passed around for you individually to put your loved ones on. And what we do is we hold them their truth, not in terms of their faults or their struggles or the things that they're learning, but we hold them in the oneness of who we are, in the oneness of love. And when I was trying to get in touch with, well, what is the approach today? The thing that came up, which I thought, it doesn't relate to the word order. It was called a call to love. That's what I think everything is about, is realizing that we're always connected. But the call is to us to open. We're never separate. That's the theme that we're going to be looking at. We're never separate from that love. It's our truth. And we come here to help ourselves and to reconnect to each other. Just through the community. There's so much more to us than we realize. And many of you get glimpses of that at different moments. You realize you haven't experienced that. Oh my gosh, there's something more to us. There's just more to life than I can understand. But one of the challenges as we come in from the outside into the sanctuary that connects with the truth of us, and that's what this sort of symbolic building is that symbol of coming into yourself. And some people struggle with, well, how does that work? Why don't I go to what I do everything else? But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Why that doesn't quite work. It means the mind, it seems like it should. But in the truth of who we are and how things are designed, it won't. Now, when we come in here, one of the challenges is that, my gosh, we're saying the same thing every Sunday. Man, I heard that. I know that, right? Okay. And so then all of a sudden, start to shut out. I just think it's words. And I start to shut it out. But here's the challenge. And our third tenet here in unity, Roger can tell you what it is because he has all these memories. I create by what I think, feel, and believe. So it is important that I hear what's being said because it's important that I take those into my being. I take them in far enough that they start to become more and more a mindful part of my being. Not just words, but something that's about me that affects the changes and the choices that I make from moment to moment. Because in every moment, you and I are making a choice. About ourselves, about the world, about everything. back over. I was reading recently, uh, someone had asked a question of a master, and by master, I mean beings that are like Jesus, that come from the realm of pure spirit. There's a lot of other realms, but the pureness of spirit, the pureness of who we are, the pureness of God, that's what we're really truly invested in, because that's where our happiness and joy, that's where it is, both within us and that part of ourselves. But I'll explain more about that also. But anyway, this mystic was saying it's really important to realize which way we're moving. Are we moving towards what we want? Or am I moving away from what? And you remember, in each moment, we're creating. So it's important to be mindful of what are you choosing in this moment. Now, as a human, we're always seeking happiness. We're seeking love. Because it's who we are. We're seeking out more and more of that of who we are. But we're so often we're cut off from that, or we think we are cut off. And that's what we're learning. We're learning that we're never cut off. But how do we reconnect so that this becomes a conscious part of who I am? And in the process, it's about, when we said in the beginning, a call to love. Love doesn't judge. The part of us that thinks we're separate from love, that judges. But love doesn't judge. So when we talk about things in unity, sometimes it's really easy to get interpreted through the viewpoint of separation, right and wrong, black and white. But we're here to open ourselves up to something that knows the oneness, the wholeness of each of us. So when we're talking about, am I choosing what's permanent or what is not permanent? It doesn't matter. You're not being judged about that choice. We just have consequences to our choices. There's no right and wrong. There's no right and wrongs because of the truth of who you are and what is. Now, the focus for me, what came up to me when I was listening to order, is what is order? What I notice is that as spiritual people who are interested in spirituality, let me put it that way. So often we think that the troubles of the world, the drama of the world, the fears of the world, the horrificness of it, that God is going to change that for us. Love is going to change. So we have this expectation. We're waiting for that to happen. And while we're waiting, there is a process called grace that we touched upon in the daily word today. That is always there. And Evie talked about that last when she introduced this month. And she gave examples of how we can see grace even in the challenges and the conflicts. She used the example of the experience of COVID. And how in that, there were also wonderful things that happened, even though there were some very painful and difficult things, especially in the beginning. She talked about the Olympics. That Olympics or anything can be so many different things. And yet, at the same time, we saw many, many experiences and we felt it within ourselves. The heart open to what we were seeing, feeling. But despite that grace that's always there, everything is constantly changing. The wars start, and conflicts start from one place to another. It never seems to stop. So how does all that fit together? Does God even love me? If God was loving, would all this be gone? I mean, all of you, I think you've experienced in yourself that There's a sense that things maybe should be different. Even in your daily life, there's a sense sometimes, wait a minute, this is so hard. Why is it so hard? Shouldn't it be gentler? Shouldn't things be more loving? Shouldn't life be more peaceful? And yes, that's true. But when it isn't here, we wonder. We have judgments that arise within ourselves. So things are not very loving in my life. Does this mean I'm bad? Does this mean that what we call God doesn't love me? Why is there suffering? My fear of diseases, waiting for that one shoe to fall. All of that is coming out of this confusion about what we're seeing and experiencing. How can there be a loving God in all of this? And I would say the answer to all that about, am I bad? Am I guilty? Is an unequivocal no. That's not the truth. That's not what this is about. And in fact, one of my trips to India, it was very, very interesting because there was this one moment, which only happened, I only saw it once, where the mystic there all of a sudden just sort of stopped and he kind of started going somewhere else. It was in response to a question about love. You know, it's so easy. We have infinite perceptions of what we think God is. And God is love. God is everything. But when he was talking about God and God's love, you could feel the emotion. And so we have no comprehension of the love that we are held in, that it's so beyond our understanding, experience, that we're always being held in this energy. So for our personalities, we have different concepts. Some of us are more intellectual, some are physical, but there's also all of it's there. And there's a devotional element too. Love. Love is something more, more amazing than the love that we experience. It's a love that includes and encompasses everything. There's no judgment, there's no differences, there's no separation in that experience of just even an expansion of love. But the problem is we carry these doubts inside of ourselves. We're carrying them all the time. So these fears and these doubts, these self-judgments, they're always there. And the more we can be open to that, the more we can look at that, the more beneficial it can be for us, because I can't give anything away until I take possession of it. And this is why it's so important to understand that love doesn't judge. You have to trust that. You have to open and say, show me how to love myself in all of this. Show me how to look at myself through your eyes, not my eyes of separation and judgment. Now we live in a creation here that has clouds and it has sun. And it's always changing. The sun is there and it appears to be gone. It appears to have disappeared as the cloud comes by. And we never know how long the clouds are going to be here or how thick, but the sun is always there. So the creation we live in is in constant change. So how are we going to get the peace and the love and the joy that we seek in this constant change? And I've read this before, I'm going to read it again here. It says that the phenomenal universe, in other words, the physical creation, all of it, everything in the physical creation, all that is not eternal. This creation we live in, I don't care how far out you go, what universe you go to, everything is in constant flux, in a constant change. And if you look at it more deeply, everything lives off something else. You can watch Animal Kingdom, you know, And it's, man, oh man, it's not much fun to be one of those animals, you know? Well, it's not a whole lot better being a human either, really, when you look at it more closely, right? So, so it says that the phenomenal universe, all which is not eternal. In other words, the phenomenal universe is always changing. Things are always being created and they're always being destroyed, or they're being born and they die. What a stressful situation. Really. I mean, we always got death hanging over us. And some of us, it's hanging a little bit more clearly than a few years ago, right? So, so is this really what you want to be spending your time trying to hold on to? It's okay to enjoy it. It's okay to enjoy it. But is this where your happiness truly is going to come from? And so anyway, continue what they said. Michael, you keep diverting here. All that is not eternal is not. So from a mystical point of view, all that phenomenal universe, the body, and the world is a symbol of the belief that I'm a body. It's a symbol of my belief in being separate from the infiniteness of spirit. Spirit is unchanging. Spirit is what we give a name to. We call it God for something. Okay. But it's unchanging, it's one. That's the only thing that's real. Everything else is not. Everything else they say is a little bit more like a dream, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But all mystical traditions that go far enough have an understanding of the difference between what is real and what is real. So Jesus, we say that he comes here to show us the way. Well, you know, it's not showing us Team Jesus. It's something he's showing us. There was things, they're very hard to find there, but there are things that he's trying to tell us. There are things he's trying to show us. And all mystics who come from a similar place, from a similar understanding of what is real, they come because they know that in that changing reality, we're suffering, that it's not our truth. Remember when I said last time, I remind us of that saying that we have, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. Now that's real different than being a human being and thinking that you're spiritual. Thinking that you're spiritual doesn't cut it because you're still living as a physical being. You're still living, thinking, making choices, and holding the thought. We create by what we think, what we feel, and what we believe. So they're here because we are suffering here. It's not that it's a bad place. It's a painful place, but there's a lot of beauty, you know, and it's okay to enjoy that beauty unless the team loses, you know, last night or something, you know. Then I'm back in Pain City. But also, we're in pain because of who we are. We are love. That's the core of who we are as spiritual beings. Spirit is pure love. That's what the mystics say. They say God is love, and love is God. And we are a part of it. Not intellectually, but in reality. And because we are love, but we're only a particle, we're in pain. Because in a way, we're split. We're split from the wholeness of who we are. And so I don't care how many country songs you might be able to write, you know, it's still going to stay there. That split is still going to be there. I don't care how many girls or boys you find, the pain is still going to be there. That separation is always there. It's nothing wrong with having boyfriend and girlfriends. Again, remember, love doesn't judge. When you go into a movie theater, at least the old ones, I don't know how the new ones work, to be honest with you. I'm still the real, the bulb, and the whatever goes through it, the film. So when you go into a theater and there's no film and the projector is casting this one white light, there's only one, the light of God, the light of love. But if we introduce a shadow on a piece of film, and you can use infinite number of shadows and infinite number of shapes, now you have contrast. Now you have the appearance of differences, of separation from the light. Course in Miracles uses the imagery that at some point in time there was a thought, what if there was, what if, I can't remember how they put it now, but what if I could share that experience of God? What if there's something more than the one light? And all of a sudden we've introduced a shadow. We've introduced duality, but it's only a thought. They're saying it's only a thought. And there's different ways. Mystics talk about it in different ways. But the basic idea is that it's not real. It never really happened. That son in the far country, the dad never let him go. The father's love held him all the time. When your child goes out to play, you don't stop loving it. It thinks it's out there all alone. It isn't. It's in your heart always. We dream at night. I don't know how that works, but we do it. It's a projection. It's a projection of the mind, not the brain, but the mind, and it appears as a dream. And where'd all those things come from? Okay, but now that's just to give a little bit of an understanding. We also dream during the day. And this is what they're trying to teach us. So we have two minds. The mind after the split was that there is shadow and white light. This is the ego mind. And that ego mind, which is in all of us, as we're all created from it. If ego mind didn't exist and it wasn't creating, then we wouldn't have to do this. We'd already know it. We would not be experiencing our separation, our bodies, our individualities, life and death, and all the things in between. Now, to the ego, that seems pretty horrible, but it isn't. A slight shift of the ego, and all of a sudden you realize that you cannot relate to yourself any more than you can relate to somebody on the other side of the planet. There's no difference. It's just love. So this ego mind is dream. Just like we do at night, where there's a dreaming going on in the daytime. Don't have to understand it. The world is dreaming of this mind of separation. In the Course in Miracles, they suggest that it's my dream. It's my dream of my beliefs and being separate from God, separate from me. But they say it's not real. It's only a dream. There's only God. There's only the one. There's only. And that's always true. And it's a process of opening to the truth and releasing the untruth. And so what they call forgiveness is that process, and there's more to it. I'm just touching on it. It's the process of being mindful that, wait a minute, you just didn't do something to me. This is my dream. What are you yearning for? My dream is a way to escape from all my guilt. And so I want to blame you, But if I can deal with all the angst inside myself of stopping and that process of making you the problem, if I can say, show me how to see this different, let me make a different choice. Let me choose the other mind, the mind of the one light. How do I see this differently? This is about me, not about you. Evie talked about that a little bit last week, you know, when she talked about sort of this idea of, wait a minute, this thing I was reading about in the book, this domination of the male energy. Well, do I have some of that? Is that a little bit about me? Is that something I need to look at and forgive? So that's what we're doing. Forgiveness is not making it okay. Forgiveness is about letting go that it's real. And knowing that the being in front of me is spirit, pure spirit. Totally forgiven, never separate from each other. So I'm forgiving the dream that it's not real. I'm letting slowly go of this belief in that this world is real. And that's why love doesn't rush in and change the dream. The dream is a teacher. The dream is showing me all the places where I have guilt and where I projected it onto the world. So those conflicts, I can use them. I can use those conflicts, those fears, those inability to listen, the inability to figure out, how do I find peace in this relationship with Israel and Palestine? How do I find the peace between my wife and myself, or my best friend, my child? None of that is real. Those are just symbols, pictures. My body is a picture. Oh my gosh, you know. So I'm sick. What is that? It's a belief that I'm suffering from love and forgiveness. Can I forgive it? Can I make a change? Can I say no? I want to see this through your eyes, the eyes of the one light, not the one of the shadow. We used that analogy before about the drop in the ocean as a way to talk about who we are. The ocean is the oneness, the drop is you and I. And something I wanted to point out is that it's not enough to know that you're the drop. You got to do more. Remember, unity is about practicalness. It's about, how do I live this truth that I'm starting to learn? And so this master said, there's a great difference between the drop and the ocean. But when the drop merges, that's what our job is. Let go of the dreams and choose our truth and start the process of merging into our truth. Walking around saying, you know, I'm a part of God does not cut it. We've got to do something with it. We've got to make choices each moment, because that's where we're free. So he says, but when the drop merges into the ocean, then of course, there's absolutely no difference. So what our job is, where our happiness lies, is that process of forgiving what is not real. It's one moment by moment, by one image in front of me, on one image. Opening myself. We're not doing this alone. Remember, we're one. The oneness, like Evie said, it's always there. We're never separate. We are the oneness. But we're in the process of merging into that consciousness, into that reality. Spiritual awakening is an active process, not an intellectual process. Mindfulness is that process of waking more and more, being more and more in control of our mind and its choices, and making new choices over and over. But again, like we started off, it's a call to love. It's not a call to guilt. I have to look at the guilt and forgive it because it's not real. We've never been separate. We are loved. We are forgiven, and we are one. Thank you for the patience. So let's just take a moment to connect within ourselves. In that oneness of God, nothing is separate. So as we breathe and release, let yourself be held. Love is holding. Love is always holding. We're here to release any thought that is not love. So the divisiveness that we experience within ourselves, that Eddie mentioned last week, that we're being asked to look at. It's reflecting all of our lives and our worlds. And we breathe and remember and open. Let me take the divisiveness of our nation. And let me open to the oneness that holds all of this in our truth. That these are pictures of my dream of separation, my dream of being separate from God, from love, from anything, from wholeness. Let me forgive this picture, no matter their beliefs, no matter the actions. Let me know that no one has ever been separate from the oneness of God. I release this dream. I release what I'm seeing and forgive it. It's not me. And as I open to this world, as I open to the horrificness, to its right and wrongness, the horrificness of the Middle East, the wrongness of the invasion of Ukraine, and I let go of what feels right and wrong. Am I willing to let go of the reward of my emotions of being right? Oh, I can sometimes feel so good. And I'm told that what I'm seeing is not real. It's a dream, our dream. That there is shadows in the truth of light. And I forgive this entire dream of separation and hold every being, no matter how horrific the character they are, character that they're playing. And I hold that they've never been separate in truth. from the oneness of God, the oneness of us, the oneness of you, the oneness of me. We are all part of the infinite spirit of God. We are spiritual beings. We release this dream of bodies in separation and open to the joy that is always present. For that is who we are. We are joy. We give thanks. Being together and celebrating our truth. We're going to hold the prayer for protection, because you know you will be protected the wall behind you. So just go into your hearts, go into your truth, the wholeness of spirit. Hold that and feel that, and that is to see these words and deeper. So let's start again. The light of God surrounds us. We are the love of God holds us. The power of God protects us. Yeah, the presence of God watches over us. We are the presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is